Firstly, I want to ask about Loma. I feel like when I read it, there's like a science of discovery, like a body science in terms of how she's gathering senses, how she's learning how to be a human. How much science and kind of research did you do in terms of, you know, kind of the physiology and the body science to really get inside her?
Well, I feel like that's a Marley question because I feel like she's really doing a great job with the bird stuff.
Well, yeah, there's a bit of the bird anatomy that, she's kind of a mesh of many different birds, just kind of made her anatomy. But I think, like, key is how she was getting used to human anatomy. And that was explored a lot in the first 6 issues because she had, like, you know, a lot of the weird madness manifestations of human body parts and, you know, surrounding her because it was so weird to go from a bird to being inside a human. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I try to sort of think about, from the writer's perspective, I try to sort of think about, like, well, what would it be like if you were in a different body and, like, you know, things were different, you know, and you had different kinds of hormones and stuff. And so I sort of approached it from that kind of idea. Recently, a university, I think in Ottawa, took a picture of dark matter, and it looks like madness, and like the same colors, like the photo, like color and stuff like that. So I sent it to her as a reference, and you know, we're sort of using some ideas about that. I actually just spoke to a physicist, you know, who specializes in dark matter, about how would you tell if something moved through it and stuff, so that we could sort of incorporate that kind of science stuff into a book that is not like a hard science fiction in any way, but I'm always trying to, like, bring those kinds of elements into.
Some of the characters do travel from Meta to Earth, so and they use that madness zone. So the fact that dark matter almost resembles it is kind of cool. That in the universe there's something that resembles it, something we've been just playing with. So
when you design a page, do you have because the Madness Vest is such a strong visual with the colors and the spirals, do you have to plan out really how that will look and how will that interact with everything else on your page?
Sometimes. I actually, the initial phase when I work is kind of a layout, so I stage it in my sketchbook to see how everything's going to interact together, and then I scan it, blow up the page, and then I transfer it to final artwork. So there is a bit of planning in there, but I almost feel like it's like Tetris. It's fun like getting all these things together and seeing how it all comes together, and whether it reads clearly, that's important too.
From the first story to the second arc, it's kind of like how rock bands kind of change from album to album. Talk about kind of how this evolved from what was just kind of a high school story, a coming-of-age story, to suddenly a road trip story.
Well, you know, I mean, originally it really kind of is a road trip story because, you know, Loma is going on a road trip to Earth, you know? She just happens to sort of like crawl, make her first crawling, you know, like a little baby, and, you know, in Valleyville, and sort of that's sort of the beginning of her. But, like, then you really do have to, like, you know, I'm going to use a bird term, leave the nest, and, like, you know, go do what you sort of came to Earth to do, which is to explore. And I really like that analogy of, like, it being like a rock band. You know, I do think that, like, it's important for each arc to sort of have its own sort of heart, you know, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's distinct, the difference between the first 6. It almost, you know, she's becoming human in the first 6, and now that she's not 100% human, but she's become comfortable, it's time to explore. So it's almost, there's kind of infinite possibilities with that, which is wonderful with the character, and yeah, just the concept. Yeah.
We've heard these rumblings of the Young Animal crossover and kind of how the books are going to start to tie. Obviously, you know, Shade's got this kind of really kind of disconnected, kind of like she's in her own world. So, and she's got her own thing going on. So how are we going to start seeing this crossover work?
You know, I'm really excited about the crossover, and I can't say really anything about it, but I have worked all of that out in my brain about how it crosses over with the DCU and with the other young animal books, and how it plays into our own next phase.
And I mean, she is kind of bearing a object of power in the universe, so it's like, well, let's, you know, what would an emotional microphone do to this, you know, other character? It's kind of a, you know, it would be a definitely distinct individual experience, you know, any interaction with Loma. I almost called her Megan. She's not Megan.
But it's really exciting to you know, to be able to play in a big playground, but also be very much in our own playground, you know. And I think that you'll see that the way that it's going to work out is going to be pretty interesting.